Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for August 20th, 2025. I hope everybody is having a good morning. And again, I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Before we get into the episode, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the Colts and their decision to start Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. We're going to be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and more specifically Travis Hunter. And we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills and how they should move on their future past this year if they do not win or if they don't get past the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming season. Okay, so before we get into the episode, please make sure to check out the other shows on the Kretschman Media Network, the Mic Drop with Benjamin Garcia, and the Stadium Pulse with Tegan Randolph. You can find that in the homepage of this page of this channel. So I would greatly appreciate you guys checking out those pages. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. Okay, so it was announced yesterday that Daniel Jones will be starting over Anthony Richardson. Like, can we stop drafting bad football players in the top 5 of NFL drafts? Anthony Richardson, top 5 pick. Trey Lance, top 5 pick. Zach Wilson, top 5 pick. These guys are not good football players. They do not have the type of resume that some of these other quarterbacks had going into the NFL. And it makes a lot of sense when you look at the past 10 years. So go back to the 2017 draft and 2018 draft, if you would like. 2017, who was the first quarterback taken off the board? It was Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky did not have the type of resume that guys like Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes had in college, and he got drafted ahead of them. 2018, who got drafted in the top of that draft? You talk about guys like Baker Mayfield, who's a good quarterback, Sam Darnold, who's a fine quarterback. You want to know the 2 quarterbacks that were drafted after those guys? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. 2 of the top 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And this all goes back to, can we stop acting like these executives are masterclass at evaluating quarterbacks? Because it's very, very, very clear that they're not. So when I see these lists where they're ranking the top 10 quarterbacks, I don't really pay it any mind, because there's plenty of executives that make decisions like the ones that got made when you're talking about drafting Anthony Richardson and Trey Lance and Zach Wilson and Mitch Trubisky in the top of the draft. These guys are not good football players. It just is what it is. In the grand scheme of the NFL, they're not good football players. Sure, they're good football players. You have to be good to make it to the NFL. I get it. But when you look at some of the other quarterbacks that were in these drafts, it makes you look at it a certain type of way. But when you talk about the Colts and Anthony Richardson, I never understood the hype around Anthony Richardson coming out of Florida. He wasn't even a good quarterback at Florida. So please answer me this question. If somebody isn't a good quarterback at the University of Florida, what makes you think he's going to go into the NFL as a top 5 pick, by the way, and go into an organization and all of a sudden become a good quarterback? If Anthony Richardson was a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth round pick, fine, I get it. Top 5, he had no business being a top 5 pick. None whatsoever. And this kind of just goes back to my criticism of the Colts, where I'm told that Chris Ballard is some elite executive. He's some great general manager. If that's the case, why in the world do they keep making picks like this? And you see some of their other draft picks and you're like, okay, where are the elite players on this team? Sure, they have Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, elite player, but like, where are all these elite players if they have an elite executive? Why in the world have they only won? They've been in the playoffs twice in Chris Ballard's regime? You guys know it's the year 2025, right? He started his career with the Colts as a general manager. Well, he was the general manager of the Colts in 2017. That's when he started. They made the playoffs 2 times. He traded a first-round pick for Carson Wentz. Bad decision on top of bad decision on top of bad decision. Took Anthony Richardson in the top 5. Please tell me why Frank Reich, Frank Reich, Chris Ballard kind of came in at the same time. That's the head coach quarterback combination over there in Indianapolis. Why'd they get rid of Frank Reich and not Chris Ballard? What, because Colin Cowherd's friends with Chris Ballard and he tells everybody how great Chris Ballard is? It's coming from Colin Cowherd. Do you trust his opinion? Because I don't. Chris Ballard, to me, should have been moved on from by the Indianapolis Colts years ago. And the fact that he's still the general manager of that football team, to me, is an absolute shame. He should have been let go a long time ago. But again, Chris Ballard's PR team is some of the best in the NFL. So everyone tells me how great of an executive this guy is when he's just not. The Indianapolis Colts are also flirting with the idea of moving on from Shane Steichen. Apparently, Shane Steichen's on the hot seat. Why in the world is Shane Steichen on the hot seat? They almost made the playoffs 2 years ago with Gardner Minshew as a starting quarterback. Gardner Minshew as a starting quarterback, and he almost made the playoffs. Why in the world is Shane Steichen on the hot seat? Why? Because he couldn't transform Anthony Richardson, who was not a good quarterback coming into the NFL, into a good quarterback? Is that why? I mean, this guy is one of the best offensive minds in the league. This guy, if they move on from Shane Steichen, I bet you a team ends up picking up Shane Steichen. And they're going to be very happy with the addition of Shane Steichen. Because this dude has the potential to be a great head coach. And he is a great offensive play caller. The problem is he did not have a quarterback that could elevate his offense. And that's the problem. The Colts have been fighting to find a quarterback since Andrew Luck. And this is why I say, when all these teams talk about moving on from their quarterback, Lamar Jackson's the problem. Josh Allen's the problem. This guy's the problem. That guy's the problem. I'm not saying teams are looking to move on from them, but I'm just saying there are people that try and say Lamar Jackson's the problem. Josh Allen's the problem. I was told that during the Andrew Luck days, that Andrew Luck, there were some things with him that you had to pay attention to. Interceptions, not great. The Colts would kill to get Andrew Luck back on this football team. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you have a franchise quarterback, appreciate that franchise quarterback. And I'm not just talking about just the fans of the team. I'm talking about just fans in general of the NFL. Like, that's why teams are so hesitant to move on from their quarterback. Because of this situation right here. Because of the Indianapolis Colts. That's why teams are hesitant to move on from their quarterbacks. Because when you look at the Colts, they have struggled to find a starting quarterback ever since they moved on from Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck retired, I should say. That's why teams are doing this. Because you don't want to be in a position like the Colts where they moved on from their quarterback and now look at their quarterback situation. Drafting Anthony Richardson in the top 5. Their starting quarterback now is Daniel Jones. Their starting quarter. And by the way, I think it's the right decision. It's the right decision. Anthony Richardson's not going to win games for the Indianapolis Colts. He's not a good quarterback. To me, I think he's in the bottom 5 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. That's how bad I think Anthony Richardson is. I think there may be backups better than Anthony Richardson. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that. He is not a good football player. But hey, look, drafting top 5, Chris Ballard, great executive. I mean, come on now. It just, like, I just don't understand why is it so crazy to have standards? As a football fan, as somebody who commentates on the game of football, why is it so crazy to have standards? You have two playoff appearances. You have 1 playoff win in your 8 years as a general manager. Why are you still the general manager of that football team? Everybody fell for the hype of Chris Ballard. He has not backed up the talk. And by the way, wins are a general manager stat. No doubt in my mind about that. There isn't anybody in an organization that has more of an impact on winning than the general manager. 1 playoff win, 2 playoff appearances in his time with the Indianapolis Colts. Fired a coach. Hired a new coach. All of a sudden, that coach is on the hot seat, even though, like I said, 2 years ago, they almost made the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. Got to think about it like that. So I want to move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars and Travis Hunter. So here's the thing. If Travis Hunter does not play wide receiver and cornerback, I think that the Jaguars made a really big mistake, not just drafting him at the number 2 overall pick, but trading up future first round pick to go get this guy. I mean, ask yourself this question. Is Travis Hunter, was he a better wide receiver prospect than Marvin Harrison Jr.? No. Was he a better cornerback prospect than Patrick Surtain? I don't believe so. So if he's not going to play both sides of the ball, it's a very real scenario that they probably overpaid to go get Travis Hunter. Like, I don't think this is a good idea if he's not playing both sides of the ball. And you have to ask yourself, in the NFL, do you think that that's actually possible? It's a very risky bet that the Jacksonville Jaguars are taking here, because Travis Kelce talked about it on the New Heights podcast. Teams are just going to run at him. Like, that's what they're going to do. They're going to run towards Travis Hunter, because when you're playing that many reps against the best athletes in the world, I mean, you're playing on both sides of the ball. It's difficult from that standpoint. Now, to me, the way I would handle this is I would just play Travis Hunter at cornerback and then have him in third down, 11 personnel packages on offense. I think that's the way to do it. But this is a very risky bet that the Jacksonville Jaguars are taking, because if this becomes a scenario where not only is he playing only one side of the ball, but he's just really good on one side of the ball, and you drafted that player at 2 and traded up the type of capital that you traded to go get him. Not only that, the Jaguars have an extremely young general manager. I think they got trigger happy here. And if this bet doesn't, pan out for the Jacksonville Jaguars and they're not a good football team this upcoming year, which, by the way, that could be a very realistic scenario. I mean, you're talking about that's probably going to be a top 10 pick, which, by the way, salute to the Browns. I think that the Browns made an absolute great deal there, right? Because to me personally, I didn't even think Travis Hunter was the best player in this draft. I think Abdul Carter was a better player than him, because here's the thing. I don't think Travis Hunter is Surtain on the defensive side of the ball, and I don't think he's Justin Jefferson on the wide receiver on the offensive side of the ball. I don't look at him as that type of player. But Abdul Carter, I look at Abdul Carter as like the second coming of Micah Parsons, right? And if that's the case, and you drafted, let's just say, I'll give you a good comparison. If Travis Hunter is Brian Thomas Jr., who, by the way, is a very good receiver, borderline, could potentially be elite this upcoming year, but they draft him as a number 2 overall pick and he plays one side of the ball over a guy who could be Micah Parsons, like that type of player who could be one of the best defensive players in football. To me, I would look at that, and I would look at the Jaguars and say, you overpaid for the guy, which, by the way, even if Travis Hunter is a wide receiver and a cornerback in the NFL, I still think they probably overpaid for him, in my personal opinion. I don't see a scenario where that's the case, where he could play wide receiver and cornerback. And I think it's even more detrimental to his career that the Jaguars traded up to go get him. And the reason why I think that is because there's going to be more pressure. Like, hey, we traded a first and a second round pick, or we traded 2 firsts to go up and get obtain your services. And now there's more pressure. Like, we didn't do that just to get a receiver. We didn't do that just to get a cornerback, because that would just be a reckless use of assets there. So that's where I say, hey, like, it's got to work out like this, but they have to have a legitimate plan to do it, right? Like, they have to have a legit plan to have Travis Hunter play both sides of the ball. Because my question is this: is Travis Hunter a fantastic athlete? Yes. But I just think it's different in the NFL. Like, yeah, he can do that in the Big 12 where he's playing against, Baylor and Kansas State and TCU and all these other teams, or the Pac-10 where he's playing against UCLA and Oregon and all, teams that they don't have the type of NFL talent that, the NFL has. Obviously, that's college football. So that's where I come from, and I say this could potentially be a dangerous situation for the Jaguars, because if this doesn't pan out, and that's the first move that this new general manager made, that could be bad. That could be really bad for them. Like obviously they're in a new regime with Liam Cohen, and the former Ram scout. His name escapes me. I believe it's James Gladstone. Let me double check that. I'm sorry, like his name, James Gladstone. Yep, I was right. Liam Cohen and James Gladstone. That's obviously the new regime there in Jacksonville, and I'm bullish on that regime because obviously Gladstone comes from the Rams, and I think that the Rams have a potential to win the Super Bowl this upcoming year, and he was a big part in getting that roster together. So obviously, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the work that he's done, but your first move being trading the type of assets that you traded to go get Travis Hunter, it's very risky. But I'll tell you this, if somehow Travis Hunter can do that and he can play both sides of the ball, then I think you can make a case that it was worth it. I can't get over the fact that, I think that the Jaguars may be overvaluing the roster that they have. And I think during the draft, they were like, hey, we're not going to be drafting in the top 10 next year. We could give up a first round pick because this is going to be, a pick in the 20s. I don't know what they're looking at when they think that, because the Jaguars are not going to be picking in the 20s next year. They're probably a team that's going to be in that 7 to 15 range of draft picks next year. And if that's the case and the Browns walk away with 2 first-round picks, wow, in this draft, that would be wild. And it's kind of crazy. Like, if I were the Browns, I would try and see if hey, is anybody interested in our 2026 pick? We'll take a 2027 pick. We'll just do a pick swap. That's all we'll do. We'll trade you this year's first for a 2027 first. Because, man, that 2027 class, have you guys seen that 2027 draft class? Have you guys seen that? I mean, you talk about Arch Manning, that's probably going to be in that draft. I think Lenore Sellers is going to be in that draft. DJ Lagway, Jeremiah Smith, Dylan Stewart, Colin Simmons. I mean, man, that's going to be one of the best drafts that we've seen in a very, very long time. So if I were the Browns, I'd be like, hey, anybody want our 2026 pick? We want a 2027 pick. So, that's pretty much all I have to say about the Jacksonville Jaguars there. And before we get into the next topic, please make sure to go to the homepage of this show and make sure to go check out the other shows on the Kretschman Media Network. You have the Mic Drop there with Ben Garcia. You have the Stadium Pulse with Tegan Randolph, and we're working to add 2 more shows to the network. And this weekend, it's going to be a fun weekend this weekend, because I'm going to start my study on Clemson and LSU, and then obviously Ohio State and Texas. And we'll be giving you guys next Wednesday. I think we're going to do it next Wednesday. We're going to have our preview show for those 2 games. So we're going to have the Ohio State Texas preview and the LSU Clemson preview. And we're just going to be talking about those 2 games on the show because those are the 2 biggest games of the week. And, those are games that I think every college football fan is really, really looking forward to. So that is going to take us into our next topic, and that is the Buffalo Bills. Ask yourself this question. If the Buffalo Bills can't get past the Kansas City Chiefs this year, you got to think to yourself, it's time to move on from Sean McDermott. I mean, look, I think Sean McDermott is a fine coach. I think he's done some good things with the Bills, obviously. And I think that he would probably get a head coaching job, maybe not right after he would, be moved on from, but in the next year or 2 after that, I think people would remember, hey, he did some good things with Buffalo. But you got to make a decision and stick to it. And I mean, how many times are you going to get to the playoffs, play the Kansas City Chiefs, and lose? At some point, you have to make a change. At some point, it's either got to be the coach or the quarterback. Ask yourself this question. Do you want to move on from Josh Allen? Nope, obviously not. That's not even a conversation. So it's got to be the coach. It's the same thing in Baltimore. It's the same thing in Baltimore. And here's the thing. This is why I say that. Why does Kansas City keep winning the AFC? Why do they keep winning all these games in the regular season, getting the playoffs, winning a bunch of playoff games, getting in the Super Bowl, winning Super Bowls? Why is that happening? Because of attention to detail. Attention to detail is the reason why the Kansas City Chiefs win a lot of games. Why? Because they have the best offensive play caller in the league, the best defensive play caller in the league. They have that combination. They have a bunch of good coaches in between there as well. And again, that's where I look at the Bills and I say, you got to make a move. You got to make a move. And it's not going to be the quarterback, because you waited all this time to go get a quarterback like Josh Allen. And once you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, you just got to ride that bike until the wheels fall off. Just is what it is. He's that type of quarterback. And to me, like, what would the Buffalo Bills need? I think that they need an offensive wizard type of coach, right? Like, I think that's the direction they need to go. And to be honest with you, they can go get a Mike McDaniel, somebody like that, somebody along those lines. Not saying Mike McDaniel in particular, but just somebody along those lines, because it's a player-led leadership structure in Buffalo with Josh Allen and the guys that they have, right? Like, that's the way they can handle this situation there. They can go get an X's and O's type of guy that's going to give you a legit advantage come game day because of the fact that they have the leaders that they have on that team. And, you know, to me, when it comes to the AFC, I don't think that the Bills are going to get to the Super Bowl this year. I don't. Like, I gotta see it to believe it. And right now, when you look at the Bills and what they've done over the past few years here, when you talk about getting the playoffs, they lost to the Bengals a few years ago. They've been losing to the Chiefs these last 2 years. They've been losing to the Chiefs before then. It's time to make a change. It's time to make a change. I like Sean McDermott. I think he's a fine coach. Seems like an awesome guy. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, why are we continuing to run it back with this guy? Right? Like, I get it. Moving on from a football coach is different than moving on from a basketball coach, because moving on from a basketball coach, like, the Denver Nuggets moved on from their coach and they almost beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs. It's completely different in basketball than it is football, because in football, you have to establish a culture. You have to draft guys that fit your culture. They have to be the right type of guys. In basketball, it's a little different. So I understand why teams are more hesitant to move on from football head coaches. But Sean McDermott, how long is it going to take before you can actually get this team over the top? Because when it comes to the Bills and the Chiefs, I don't see some massive discrepancy in talent. I think the quarterbacks are neck and neck. That's how good I think Josh Allen is. Like, it's not like the Bills or the Chiefs have elite offensive weapons. You know, obviously the Chiefs have had Travis Kelce over for his entire career. They had Tyreek Hill 4 years ago, right? Like, so they did have weapons there, but these last few years where they've been losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, like, the weapons have been similar. Obviously the Chiefs, I think, have a better offensive line, but I think the Bills are going to have a good offensive line this year. I think they're getting there. So it's got to come back to the coaching. And that's where I look at this and I say, it's not Josh Allen's fault. What's happening in Buffalo is not Josh Allen's fault. I'm sorry. When you have the type of performances that Josh Allen has had in the playoffs, I think you can make a case that Josh Allen is the best, not just the best quarterback in the league, but the best playoff quarterback in the league. I mean, some of his playoff performances that we've seen have been out of this world. He is exceptional come the postseason. And which is why I say wins are not a quarterback stat, right? You had the 13-second game where Josh Allen played his tail off, lost that game, put his team in a position to win that game, right? Like, there's just so many instances where it's like, no, I'm not putting that on Josh Allen. And again, the two biggest people in your organization are your coach and your quarterback and your general manager as well. But, you know, Brandon Beane's going to have a job for the next 5 years minimum because he traded up to get Josh Allen, right? Like, when you look at that type of move, that's going to get you brownie points for your organization for a long time because of that. Like, oh, you want to move on from me? I drafted Josh Allen. Traded for Stephon Diggs, who was very good for that team. Very productive for that offense. But Like, I just think that when you look at the Bills, can they do more from a personnel standpoint? Yes. And I personally, I'm going to be honest with you, not only would I move on from Sean McDermott after the year, I would actually move on from Brandon Beane. I don't know where the Bills stand from that standpoint, but I would move on from him as well. Because, like, unlike the Ravens, I look at the Ravens and I say, wow, look at that roster. They have everything. They can go win the Super Bowl this year. I don't think the same way about the Bills. I don't think the same way about the Bills. I don't look at the Bills and say, wow, they got this elite defense with multiple all-pros on it. And they have this offense where they're kind of loaded. I don't look at that with the Buffalo Bills. I look at that with the Ravens. I don't look at that with the Bills. So to me, I think that, obviously 2 of the 3 pillars of your organization are your quarterback, your head coach, your general manager. I think 2 of those 3 should go after the year, and I don't think it's the quarterback. So, do your subtraction there. Who's that going to be? The head coach and the general manager. Those are the guys that I think the Bills should look to move on from, because I just don't believe that, 1, they're going to get past Kansas City, and 2, that they're going to get past Kansas City with the regime that they have. They have the quarterback. The quarterback's the hardest thing to find out of the 3. And the head coach and the general manager, I just think it's time to just say, hey, if you guys don't get it done this year, we got to move in a different direction. We don't have, how many more years does Josh Allen have in his absolute prime where he's playing right now? Got to ask yourself that question. Got to ask yourself that question. And you have to ask yourself, okay, how many years do we have of Josh Allen's absolute prime? And is this coach the one that's going to get us over the top? Because I don't think you can look at this and say, we can't start over. Like, we might waste one of Josh Allen's prime years. But it's like, you can make a case that you wasted Josh Allen's prime because of the head coach that you had. Like, that's just the way I look at it. Right? That's the way I look at this. It's like, yeah, you don't want to essentially waste a year of Josh Allen's prime, but you don't want to waste any more years. Like, I think it's a step back for multiple steps forward. And I think the Bills, they do some smart things, right? I think that they would hire a really good coach for Josh Allen and this team. I think they would. So that's where I'm at with the Buffalo Bills. But where I'm also at is at the end of the show. What a segue. What a segue. I appreciate you guys for coming out. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. Make sure to check out the other shows on the Kretschman Media Network. We are only going up from here. We're doing some really good things. We got some more shows coming to the network very, very, very soon, and I think you guys are going to enjoy them. So, yeah, check them out. And hey, we have college football this weekend. Iowa State versus Kansas State is this weekend, and I can't wait for it. That's over in Ireland. It's going to be a great game. A lot of fun. And college football right around the corner. We're going to have a game to break down this time next week. I can't believe that. We're at that point of the offseason where in a week from now, we're going to have a game to break down. So, I'm excited. I can't wait to get into my study of Clemson and LSU, and then Florida and Texas. That's going to be a good time. And yeah, I can't wait to break it down for you guys. So that is it for the show, and I will see you guys in the next episode.